Good evening and welcome to Boise State in the Community right here on BTV. I'm going to be your host, Scott Wilson. My fellow classmates and I take a service learning class right here in Boise State that teaches us studio production work as well as television. It gives us a chance to talk to faculty and staff that are making a big difference here in the Boise community. We have somebody we brought back. He is a 16-year veteran of his field as well as an assistant provost for cultural global education. And trust me, he has so much passion about the volunteer program and has so many awards. Please welcome Dr. Gonzalo Bruce. Dr. Gonzalo Bruce, thank you for coming back.
Thank you, Scott, for having me back.
So last time you were talking, you came here, and how was that experience last time?
It was great, yeah. That time I was with the Dean of Engineering, and we were talking about a grant that we had received to promote mobility of students between Colombia and the United States, only for engineering fields.
Only for engineering fields?
Yeah.
So did that Columbia grant go through all the way? Is it continuing to go right now?
No, it's complete. We did it throughout the whole 2019 year. And we spent hefty time promoting the program for our students to go abroad, and that happened in June. And then in August, we received Colombian students who stayed with us for a whole semester.
Wow, a whole semester.
Yeah, doing research.
So I want to jump a little bit to, you're obviously not from Boise originally, you're actually from Chile.
Yeah.
So why did you move to Boise?
Well, I moved to Boise to join Boise State University. Boise State at that time had the idea of creating a Center for Global Education, which was a hub for all international things at Boise State, looking for greater coordination. So I joined that effort, and I was very excited to do that. So, I came from Kansas.
Oh, you're from Kansas.
Yeah.
So all your universities from Ohio to Pittsburgh, and there's one I cannot pronounce, if you can pronounce that one for me.
Oh, the Catholic University of Valparaiso, Chile.
Well, I can't pronounce that.
Yes,
but
that's where I did my undergraduate, and so it's at my alma mater.
Okay, so coming from Ohio, how did that experience change from coming to Ohio, maybe Kansas, now to Boise?
Mm-hmm. So I joke with my friends that I'm moving slowly westward, but Ohio is home for me because that's where I finished my high school years, and I have my host family in Ohio, and then I came back to Ohio for my PhD program. So that's always home. Then I moved to Pennsylvania for work, and then Kansas, and then Idaho.
Idaho.
Yeah.
So maybe Ohio and Pittsburgh. Now you're going from Boise, maybe California at a certain point?
I'll retire in Hawaii. That's the goal.
In Hawaii. So obviously coming from Chile, it's such a different atmosphere. It's such a different type of vibe. Is there anything from Chile that you've learned that you brought to Boise for studies, for maybe even a personal life?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I grew up in Chile, so I have a lot of Chile in me. But when I saw Boise and Idaho, it reminded me a lot of Chile, actually, because of the mountains and kind of like the lifestyle of people doing outdoor stuff. That's very much Chile. So it was a great, sort of like a comeback, but it wasn't a comeback. It's just kind of like a comeback to mountains.
So are you a big outdoors person?
Yeah,
do you still do outdoor stuff today?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, wow, okay. So you traveled to 68 countries. I mean, I've only traveled to probably 2 or 3. So out of those 68 countries, what makes it so awesome to know that you've been to those countries?
Well, a little bit of, the field in which I am, which is international education. I deal with a lot of people from so many cultures, so many countries, and that's probably the part that I love the most about my job is the people that I get to meet, in these trips. And typically they're work-related trips, so they're not, tourism. But the connections that you build and the opportunities to just scratch a little bit on people's culture and society and the ways of living, for me, is fascinating. And then when students come to campus, I realized, that my little time in those countries was very helpful. So for me to understand a little bit, the way that they work or the way that they view life. And sometimes I get to teach other people, it's like, no, that's not how it would work, in that particular country. So I really enjoy the travel part because I get to learn a lot from other cultures.
So a little bit of pleasure, a little bit of business in those countries, correct?
I try to balance that out, but typically their business works.
So do you have one country in mind that has really stand out for you and you have a memory from a couple years back at all?
Several countries, in a way, have stuck in my mind, and whenever I get to go back, I love to repeat a couple of things that really I thought were very impressive. One country that I really was fascinated by was the country Georgia, not the state Georgia, the country Georgia in the Caucasus of, kind of like Central Asia. And that country has very much of a charm because it's past, Soviet Union heritage, but it has a very distinct and unique culture, very interesting. So I really enjoyed that experience, and I got to go back a couple of years ago, and that was great.
So what really stands out about Georgia that really does make you have a memory? Is there maybe food?
People are kind of like, the southern part of Russia, and they're very friendly, and they're very kind of like Latin in many ways. So, coming from South America to this, I feel that there is a great connection. Food is great, and I think we, as Boise State, have a lot of future in that particular country in terms of, having a study abroad program there or building connections with universities.
So looking on your LinkedIn profile, it says you have a lot of languages that you know. Is there maybe one of those languages that help you a lot, or maybe one of those things that really pushes you in one of those countries?
I don't speak that many languages. Really? I only speak 4. But the languages that I typically use are, English for work. That's the most dominant one. Spanish is a very useful language. Even in the United States, it's very helpful to speak Spanish. And the other 2 languages are Portuguese and French, which have proved to be not so useful, but a lot of fun.
Yeah, I took a French class, and I think French is definitely very a lovely speech. But you have 4 languages. I think that's a lot of languages for somebody who's like, I only have 1 language, and I've taken French. But so I want to go back a little bit to your university, especially when it comes to the study abroad program here. Is there one part of the university that you went to that really helped with the study abroad program in your mind, in your heart?
I'm a product of study abroad. My first study abroad experience was when I was 16. So I was very young. I was in 11th grade, and I decided to go abroad for 1 year and live with a host family. At that time, it was a big decision, but I didn't feel that it was, like I was life-changing, but it was definitely a life-changing experience. I was living in Chile as a Chilean, and then I came to Ohio for 1 year in the very rural part of Ohio. And I'm kind of like a city guy in terms of where I grew up. So for me, it was a relearning of so many things, but I enjoyed it.
So talking about coming here and obviously learning at a certain point, when I went inside of your actual office, you had something up there that I don't know how I didn't even realize it was in front of my face. 4 of them, smack dab in the middle. But this is a hashtag, you are welcome here. And this is something that I think is just a wide range, because obviously there's different languages on it. And speaking to you before, you said this is actually not the original one, but can maybe enlighten us a little bit more about what it means to you in the Boise State community?
Yes, so in 2017, the US government decided to create a travel ban. This was the first time that we hear in the United States that there's a travel ban, that some countries cannot come to the United States. And there was a movement from a university, and I don't remember exactly which university it was, and they created sort of like a counter, response to that travel ban, which is kind of like, you're welcome here, just to reinforce, the message that international students on our campus are welcome. So there was this poster that was kind of like circulating, and we thought it was a great opportunity for us to build the Center for Global Education and create our own poster with the message of you're welcome here.
That's an awesome tool. So actually, if you guys want to go to France, if you guys want to go to Italy or anything overseas, Dr. Bruce has a study abroad program that's going to help you a little bit with that help. So when we come back, we're going to go right into that subject. This is Boise State in the Community right here on BTV.
Moving onto campus my first year was a really, really big deal. It was the first time out of the house, first time living with so many people that I don't quite know. And so preparing for that, one of the first things I did was obviously look at the floor plan, see what I could fit into my room, what I should bring, what I should not bring. And then the next step was really money. So thinking about how I was going to pay for it, considering on-campus jobs, of which I've had a few, and it definitely helped in being able to pay rent and being able to live on campus and be a student effectively.
So one thing that was great for parents is just one inclusive payment. We really enjoyed that, made it very easy. But as well, having someone here to help her out, having the support services was big for us. Knowing that there was resident advisors, resident directors, and also academic offerings for her at the residence hall was huge. Knowing that she'd be taken care of financially and as well as being very helpful to her to succeed at school.
Welcome back to Boise State in the Community right here on BTV. Did you think about that place you wanted to go? Because guess what? We're talking about that study abroad program. Dr. Gonzalo Bruce, the study abroad program, which is the biggest thing here in Boise State in my opinion, can you maybe explain a little bit more about it and what kind of entails it?
Yeah, so study abroad program at Boise State consists of any activity that you will do for credits at another country. So that's what we consider study abroad. To qualify for study abroad, you have got to start earning credits, you know, and these could be Boise State credits or it could be credits that you transfer from another institution. So the ways that you can go and study abroad are, you know, through companies that create these programs, and typically they have a greater level of service for students, like a program director there, and there's kind of like, you know, schedule activities every weekend. Or you can go a little bit more kind of like independent, you know, with our partner universities, and then it is the international office of that particular university providing the service, but you don't have sort of like a schedule for every weekend and kind of like a bubble of American friends there. You have to go and reach out to your new friends. But there is so many ways of studying abroad that you know, we want students to take advantage of that. It can be for a whole semester, it can be for a whole year, or it can be just for a little bit during the summer, for a month or 3 weeks. And you know, typically students have so many barriers for study abroad. One of them is cost, the other one is you know, the schedule of courses, and the other one is just kind of like, you know, quitting all these jobs to go and study abroad. We want to make it accessible for most students to have an experience abroad. Some of them are costly and some of them are very affordable, so we have a lot of options.
Talking about jobs, you did say that you don't have to go overseas just for straight credit. You can even do overseas internships. Can you talk about that a little more?
Yeah, so we're building kind of like a portfolio of partners and destinations where we are a little bit close to, where students can do internship abroad. And this could be through internship credits, or it could be through special topics that students can go abroad, earn kind of like a real, you know, experience, but abroad, and then come back and put that on your resume. So really keen about making students even more attractive to the job market whenever they graduate from Boise State.
You're trying to make it easier for them, and obviously it costs a lot of money, but the fact that there's internships, that makes such a big difference compared to credit and internships.
That's right.
So before you're talking about the Columbia grant, and that ended, but you talked about Taiwan, a little bit about Taiwan, how you might be sending teachers over there, is that correct?
Yes, that's a very brand new grant that we have from the U.S. Department of Education. This is called a Fulbright Hays Group Projects Abroad. And in this particular grant, what we're doing is promoting curricular development on a focus of East Asia. So 6 faculty members from Boise State will travel to Taiwan, and together with them, there will be 6 K-12 teachers from Idaho, and they will travel as well. And their purpose is to start studying a particular angle of East Asia, and some of them Taiwan particularly, and they create sort of like a curricular based on East Asia. So by the end of this year, the December 2020, all the participants would have to submit kind of like curricular ideas and resources, and we will put them all on an open educational resource, an OER. So,
What's the atmosphere like when people get approached for that? Do they get excited, or are they just like, whoa, what kind of thing is that? So what kind of atmosphere is that?
Yeah, it's really a great opportunity, actually, and actually very unique. We have never done this before, but the grant covers everything for the individual. So airfare, lodging, the instruction. So it's a really unique opportunity, and we got a lot of great responses from the community, from the university, but more from K-12 teachers.
When it comes to the curriculum, is there certain aspects of the curriculum that you would like to see or the university likes to see?
Nope. We have nurses going, we have anthropologists, communication, psychology, reading specialists. People can go on many disciplines as long as the curriculum is connected to developing, more opportunities for students here to learn about the Asian cultures.
Do you think you might connect the two for Boise State and them to maybe send some of the Boise State students to go over there to help with the curriculum?
So later we hope that there will be more interest in, East Asia and have, students go abroad on their own.
So before you did say a hub, so the network program is a hub for both students and faculty. So I like that keyword, the hub. Usually what does that mean for you guys?
Boise State, since there were offices on campus that dealt with international things, what was missing was this coordination piece, kind of like, why are we doing this? How is this action helping all of these dimensions, of Boise State? That is what it was missing. So by creating the center, we have kind of like brought all of these pieces, and now we talk to each other, and there's been a great deal of coordination now, I feel.
The fact that you're helping everybody else out, not just taking the cake for yourself, you're actually letting pieces go out. And sometimes people have sweet tooth. People just be like, I don't want that guy to be sent over there. I want to send my guy over there. So talking about some of the students that went over there, I talked to you before that, have you ever had an email, maybe even a photo that came through from old students that you were like, wow, look at this. This is something that I did to help to mold. So do you have any photos or any stories about that?
Yeah, we have a couple photos. There is this student who was also not precisely, very wealthy, and he was looking for the most affordable opportunities that, to study abroad. And he chose to study at a partner university in Norway. So Norway is not a conventional destination, and then, it was very affordable for him, because when you go with partner universities, you just pay in Boise State and you're enjoying the experience. But he pretty much had a North Pole kind of experience, with the reindeer and everything. So it was really, really cool. And we have stories all the time from students that somehow, they were a little bit changed from their study abroad. Sometimes a big deal of change, from their experience.
How does that make you feel, though, when you get an email like that and you see a photo of the smiling faces and then even just a little bit of a paragraph, how much it means to you?
That's really great. I love to see students when they come back a little bit transformed, a little bit more confident, kind of like understanding of who they are. I really appreciate that. But what I appreciate the most is when these students go to, to the job market, and they start doing incredible things. And I always kind of like think about how is that student thinking about that study abroad experience as a building block for the great things that they're doing now,
Have you ever had a student go from the study abroad program here and actually be a part of another study abroad program somewhere else?
Yeah. Last year we had a really great accomplishment at Boise State. I don't know if you remember a student who was nominated as the Rhodes Scholar. Rhodes Scholar is one of the most prestigious scholarships to study at Oxford University. And she's a Boise State graduate who did 2 study abroad programs, and then she was awarded the Rhodes Scholar.
So again, that makes you just feel ecstatic to know that that's coming abroad. So other than that, we're going to make a little bit of a human aspect out of this. When you come back, I don't want you to touch that clicker. We're going to talk about his volunteer programs as well as some of his awards right here on Boise State TV. Thank you.
I loved living on campus because you were convenient to your classes and food, and you just meet like the best friends, and it's just a great time living on campus. You walk through the halls and you see people you know, and they ask you how your day is, and you just feel like you're in this big family, and it's a great community.
I have really enjoyed living on campus just because there's a huge community. You get to know so many more people than you would if you didn't live on campus. You get to interact with people, and your college experience is more vibrant and it's not just about school anymore and academics, but you get to know people and grow as a person.
It definitely did benefit me. You're close to the library, you're close to other people who are in the same classes, and so you can meet up, do homework. And just like having people like next to you who are students helps you be more focused in school.
I love going to athletic games, and I love how easy it is, and I always know when the games are because there's always stuff being posted. You're always getting emails from housing and all the events going around on campus that it really just like gives you so many options to get involved in different ways. So that's probably my favorite thing.
One of the things I thought is the most beneficial, being from the Valley even, is still living on campus. Being able to gain those skills of independence while still having all of the student support networks here on campus, and knowing that my parents are, a city away, I think that it's super valuable to stay on campus no matter where you're from, to be honest. And I would do it 1,000,000 times over.
Welcome back to Boise State in the Community right here on BTV. I'm your host still. How passionate are you about volunteering? If you're very passionate, we have somebody here again, Dr. Gonzalo Bruce, who's as passionate as can be about volunteer programs. So you were a financial advisor over at the Catholic Center. Can you talk about that a little bit more?
When I was in Kansas, there was a need for somebody to serve in the Catholic Center. That was kind of like a like one of these centers that help and support students from the university and that have some affiliation with the Catholic faith. In that time, I was invited to serve in the finance committee, which was a really cool place because we had to kind of like make decisions about, directions of the center, but also, approving expenditures for some initiatives. So it was very cool.
So for the finance world, going to study abroad, did it help a little bit with that connection?
Well, when you manage international offices, you always have to look at budgets, and manage budgets. So it's really part of, your life. So managing budgets and then assisting in the finance council was kind of like, a good extension of what I do.
So also going a part of NASFA, can you explain a little bit more about that one as well?
Yeah, NAFSA is the most important association for international education. So I belong to 3 associations of international education, but NAFSA is really kind of like the mother association. Every year they have a conference of about 10,000 people, and it moves, it's in the United States, but it moves every year, and this year is going to be in St. Louis.
St. Louis. Have you ever been to St. Louis in general?
Yes, of course.
Okay. So if NASFA helps with the international studies of, as well as the students as well, what is the biggest part when you go meet those people? Does it help with other people?
Yeah, it's first of all, it's the most important association. So this is kind of like, it's kind of like we're our go-to. For example, right now, since we're going through some small crisis with, growing, infection disease in the United States, they help, to universities with, some guidelines or interpretations of, regulations or things. But it is a very, like a 360 organization. So it's not just for study abroad professionals, it's also for people that manage big centers of global education. There is also a component for international student services, the intensive English program. So it's a very, very comprehensive association. So when you go, you will meet people from all areas of if you think about the Center for Global Education, everybody there will be kind of like represented. But the conference has a really unique purpose of being kind of like a meeting point. So if you need to network or connect with your partner universities, that's the place to do it, as opposed to going everywhere, and traveling, to all countries.
So when you do travel, obviously other people are coming from overseas. Talking about the coronavirus, it's heart-wrenching to understand that some people might not even be able to make it if they're from another overseas. Does that make it very hard sometimes, especially with this disease?
Yes, of course. Like the world in general is very interdependent. So one of the things that we're seeing with this infectious disease is how interdependent we are. It's very hard for us to think, that this is just a case of China and it's not going to move away from China with the level of mobility that we have in the world. So as much as we're interdependent, we're also kind of like challenged, by these things that it's very hard to control. One thing that we have to remember is that after all of this, we are human to human connected. So we need to treat each other kindly. When we have these type of outbreaks, we tend to show the worst image, the worst face of the human being, and we just have to remind ourselves that this is something that will pass, and probably we'll just move on, and it'll be another virus that we need to deal with.
So what type of challenges does it bring when it comes to meeting that human connection, the one-on-one?
Yeah, so universities typically, in Office of International Education, typically they have protocols, to respond to these things. And we observe, the CDC and the Department of State very closely. Those entities start labeling countries depending on the level of risk. So when we have countries that are level 1, it's kind of like, no problem, just go ahead and travel. Level 2 would be one that you have to travel with some, caution. And then level 3 is like try not to travel kind of thing. And the level 4 will be do not travel. So when we hit level 3, then we need to start pulling the countries, the programs, the students back, and canceling the programs. So that's kind of like a big challenge, because some students, they waited for this semester to study abroad. They paid a lot of money. They really made an investment, for their career. And it's sad to see that this is interrupted. But, universities, and Boise State in particular, we have the health and the safety of our students at the utmost kind of like relevance. So we need to be mindful that we're making a decision that yes, it's not a nice one to make, but it is for the safety of our students.
So if moments like that happen, especially advising for so many years, do you sometimes meet with those students that can't make it to advise a little bit more of a better plan?
We have been able to relocate some students. So we have had situations of like for example, one student was supposed to study in, I think it was somewhere in Asia. I think it was Thailand, and because of this, they preferred not to do the program there. So now we've been able to shift the program to Iceland, for example. So when it's possible, we can do it, but we had to cancel programs in China, programs in South Korea, and programs in Italy, and that means students have to return.
Well, this conversation has been delightful, enlightening, and so many levels of awesomeness. I want to thank you for coming to the studio once again. I also want to thank our technician, Jonathan Palmer, our director, Marisol, and also our producer, Samuel Bibb. My name is Scott Wilson. This is Boise State in the Community on BTV. Have a good night.